Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guests are Dr. John Stone and Ron Meyer, and they have been working on a near-death experience film, how it relates to mysticism. So, whoever would like to start, and start wherever you like.
So I'm a filmmaker, and of course, I've been doing a lot of films on the paranormal series and feature films, which you can find on Amazon or YouTube or so on. But people who I interviewed point to near-death experiences as one of the primo scientifically confirmed types of paranormal or altered state experience, because people come back and can report what they saw from their, you might say, bird's eye view when they were supposedly dead, and then reported back to healthcare workers. And we just interviewed a person named Deb King, and she had that experience with somebody that almost died in her presence. And so I thought, well, I need to do a movie on that. And of course, my friend John, we've had a very similar course in terms of our spiritual journey, you might say, going through martial arts and enlightenment intensives, and then finally deciding to do something together. And because I get around and talk to everybody, and I have the cachet of a filmmaker, a lot of people will talk to me because I'm out there in the world and I interview them and I speak at conferences. But John's kind of stuck in Madison, Wisconsin, doesn't get around too much. And so he always told me about these mystical experiences he had. And then and he always complained he couldn't tell anybody about it except me, probably. And then when I got into NDEs, it's like, oh, those are like John's experience. So as I started the idea of getting interviews, like with people like you who have NDE experiences, I said, wouldn't it be cool if I asked them if John could get in at the end of the interview and they could compare experiences and see and these are thought leaders and pioneers in describing NDEs and their impacts. So it's not just some Joe Smo off the street who had an experience. And a movie resulted from that, where pretty much is John interacting with these kind of well-known NDE people. So then the core of the idea after how we came to this, John brings up some of his experiences and seeing what these people have to say in terms of how they relate to him.
You know what I find interesting after doing over
One
400
of the
interviews.
interesting things that came,
I was just going to say what I have found interesting after doing over
go
400
ahead.
NDE interviews and researchers, movie maker, whatever interviews, is people like those Joe Schmo off the street NDEs. You say, oh, it's not just the Joe Schmo off the
Oh,
street.
I know. Yeah, I
Actually
got a bunch of
more
those in my moon.
than NDE experts. You know what I mean? They find that more entertaining.
Yeah, well,
As far as filmmaking goes, that's what people want to hear.
in my larger movie, I have, ordinary people, Native American, who have had the NDEs. But, for philosophical content, some of the ones pursued that after their NDEs, and I need that too. So maybe John could talk a little bit about some of his experiences and what the response was from these fairly articulate people that responded to him, both men and women.
Yeah, what was I forgot the exact sequence of events, but I knew Ron was getting interested in doing NDEs, and I thought, well, it's time. I took a look at this. I'd heard of NDEs, of course, but I hadn't really looked at them in any detail. Um, I started reading about them, and I was struck by two things that many NDE experiencers talk about encountering something that they would call God or the divine, a vast intelligence or the source of everything, different ways people talk about it. And the experience of unconditional love. And both, whenever people were talking about those two topics, I felt a great deal of resonance. Yes, this is what I've experienced. And I thought, my God, it's the same realm, even though my experiences have not involved death directly. Nonetheless, those two things, it came out of that. I mean, that is the essence of mysticism. Mysticism is basically the pursuit of union with the divine. That's the traditional definition. I really wasn't looking for that. I studied martial art Aikido and Tai Chi and a few other things over the years. I started 50 years ago. And I got involved with a teacher named Peter Ralston. He was quite a phenomenal martial artist. And I also found out that he was doing consciousness work, what he calls consciousness work. And I became very interested in that as well. And he was putting on a retreat called Contemplation Intensive. And the idea was that you could have a kind of enlightenment experience that the Zen people talk about in 3 or 4 days, which sounded kind of like bullshit to me. But at the time, I thought, well, Peter says it's okay, so I'm going to give it a shot. And I don't need to go into all the details about it, but I can say if people are interested, enlightenment, they're normally called enlightenment intensives, and they're available all over the country. They're quite powerful. There's no teacher involved. It's just you and going for the truth. Usually you're focused on a question: who am I? What am I? What is life? Or what is another? And on the final day of the intensive, it was a 4-day intensive, in the late afternoon, just before dinner, I broke through on the question, what am I? And I can say that I felt this huge rush of energy go up my body. And immediately I knew what I was, but I had no words for it. I was that. I am that. And then I started looking around and I saw that it was everything. And it was just and it felt like I was being reunited with someone that I thought was long dead. So there's this great deal of love and also a feeling deep grief that that I'd missed this connection that I once had, even though I have no memory of ever having had that connection. So there was experience of love there. I didn't know what to make of it, but I noticed that after the intensive, but before the intensive, I was agnostic, atheist, kind of materialist, I would say. I had sort of spiritual interests, but I didn't really think there was a God or anything. But afterwards, when I would read the works of Rumi or other mystical poets, I felt a great resonance. And even the Bible, which I hadn't read in years, came alive for me. The words of Christ, in particular. So suddenly the world was transformed and the divine was everywhere. Not that I saw it all the time, but and that's still true. So that and I started reading poetry about you, big Y, God, which is everything, which is also within me and with everything, and which is very much what NDE people talk about. Though my experiences are less direct, I would say, because I'm still my physical body. The other experience I had was a few years after this, and I was at another retreat. It wasn't an enlightenment intensive. I was taking a break, and I was sitting on a bench. I can't remember physically where it was, somewhere here in Wisconsin. And I was just sitting there quietly, and all of a sudden, my heart opened up. And it was if I could feel it. It was a physical. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. My heart just came out of my chest and filled the world. So I like embraced the world, and then it went back into my chest. But it wasn't so much like, oh my, that was wow, that was cool. It wasn't that. It was what I became conscious of while that was going on. I realized that is a love uh, which holds the world together, holds up everything, loves everything exactly as it is. Everything in its eyes, it doesn't have eyes, but this is, poetically speaking, metaphorically, everything in its eyes is perfect, just the way it is. So it has tremendous power in that it can hold everything, and yet it doesn't want to change a thing because it's just perfect, everything. But it also holds and sustains everything. So it sounded very much like the experience of being saturated with divine, with unconditional love in the afterlife, or NDE people have had. And that's those two things have occurred. And the third thing, which I didn't really think of until later, that is similar to NDEs, is the experience of the black light, which I think is similar to the experience I've had several times of emptiness. So the most powerful experience I had was one where my sense of being a person disappeared completely. There was nothing left. There was seeking, there was speaking, there was seeing, there was hearing. But where I am now, where I feel I am this, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And everything else also was nothing, like a blackness, even though I could see things. It was as if everything was suffused with this emptiness, vast emptiness.
Were you scared?
Um,
That sounds
and
scary.
no, I wasn't scared. The first time it happened, or I came to the edge of it, I thought I was disappearing. I could feel myself disappearing. And I was very scared. And it was like dying. As a matter of fact, it was a kind of a death. But I clawed my way back. You could, you could say, and I said, well, I don't want to do that again. But this one came out, it just happened. So you could say it was very like a death in that, oh, hi, Kitty. Very like death in that, the thing that we don't want ourselves to die. And that's what went away. And once that happened, there was no fear whatsoever. There was just a question, what is this? There was nothing I could hold on to. So my partner was telling me, tell me what you are. And there was I couldn't say it because there was no one there to say it. And also, when I thought the word I, it made no sense. There is no I. So, I would try to say I am, and words wouldn't come out of my mouth. It doesn't make sense. So it occurred to me that is as close to death as we can get without dying, is having the personal self disappear as it did there. There was nothing left. Everything was insubstantial. And I've heard NDE people say that, the realm after death is more real than this real world. Well, in this experience, this world seemed to be nothing, tissue paper.
The only thing I
Uh,
can compare that with is when I was writing my book and I was writing about the drowning at 5 years old. And at one point, when I was writing, I had to stop. I got kind of scared. It felt like when I was remembering it, like I was dissipating. It's the only word I could think. come to mind, like I was dissipating. And I got scared as I was writing, felt like I was just fading away into the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's exactly the feeling I had the first time. The second time it just happened. No chance of fear. I just boom, gone. There was
So I
no
had,
there was no transition. It was just suddenly nothing left there.
so I had two similar experiences and different enlightenment. Well, one in enlightenment intensive that John was at, and the first one was as he described. It just happened. The second one, there was a kind of takeaway after that void was also infinitely the potential for everything was embedded in that. It was infinitely powerful in some way.
Yeah,
I could not speak that it had that. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it, but I just knew that in a way. Not I, it's hard to speak about it, but it had a slightly different character than the first one.
yeah. I've had other experiences of the power of that, whatever you want to call it, being the source of everything, the darkness, um,
Void.
the void. Yeah. So there kind of two experiences I've had. One is of the fullness of being, which I call the beauty of being. Being, just existence itself, is beautiful. I'm not talking about the things we do to each other, but that which exists, not what we do. That's a separate category, you could say. But the world, things as they are, there's a beauty to them, which is the beauty of being. What I call it a fullness, sort of like becoming aware of the Holy Spirit, something like that. Um, and then these other experiences, what I call of the emptiness. And the Buddhists have a saying, form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than form. So they've been in this territory as well. I can't explain any of it, but most of my experiences have been about the fullness of the divine, you could say, in this world. And it's extraordinarily beautiful.
So you guys are turning into a movie, what your interests are on messing this mysticism with NDE experiences.
Yeah, the movie is out.
Oh,
I sent you a link to it.
oh, okay.
Or, somebody's listening, they could Google,
Okay, I can add the link to it.
okay, mysticism and near-death
Oh,
experience. It'll
okay.
come up. And I'm doing a larger movie called You Are Immortal, The Truth of Near-Death Experiences, which was part of the beginning of that when I was interviewing these people and I invited John to join in at the end. And so, yeah, that's a full-length, documentary feature.
And the thing about this, the film is in the interviews. Whenever I would I told each of them, one of my experiences, and they all felt a resonance with it. So there was a familiar territory to them, even though you know their most of their experiences were through their NDE and not so much in this realm. And it was quite empowering to me to hear that. Also, the experience of having difficulties talking about it to other people and having other people not really able to hear it uh, was also an experience I had. And I know that many NDEers, probably you as well, have had that, not being able to talk about it, or when you talk about it, people just they change the subject or get
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's hard to find words to talk about it at first, too. And then the words you hear coming out of your mouth seem so foreign, Like this is me. I don't talk like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there's a way I talk normally, and then there's a way I talk when I talk from my experiences rather than about them. So I've been talking more about my experiences, but when I start talking from my experiences, it's a different ways
And you
to want to
learn
express myself.
who you can talk about it with and who not to talk about it with.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I can let's see if I can find a just to give you an idea of what I mean by talking from the experience. Um, I will just take a second to find this.
So while he's doing that, we
Oh,
might,
here it is.
okay, go ahead.
Oops.
Can I finish it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So after this, we might talk about the kind of abilities, almost superhuman abilities that arose for both of us after these experiences.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I found this. This is a short, very short poem of one of the most powerful experiences I had. The experience was my eyes were closed and I was lying down, and with each breath, I felt as though I breathed in all of existence. And with each breath, I breathed it out. And as I breathed it in, I came into existence. And as I breathed it out, I ceased to be and I became everything. It sounds kind of, I don't know what that sounds like, but it was an amazing experience. This is a poem I wrote. It's called Breath. It's very short. With each breath, I come into being. I inhale your infinite beauty and become me. I breathe in the stars, the vastness of space, all of time, your impossible gift of form and existence. With each breath, I cease to be. Out of me flow, never having changed, the sea of being, the majesty of time, your impossible gift of form and existence. So that's with that other voice, which is different than that's the sort of thing you go around proclaiming in the street.
Right, right. It's like a special part of you that's sacred, that
Exactly. Exactly.
this honesty and wisdom comes out in that space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I can write better than I can talk. So when I feel that way and I start writing, it's like, I didn't know I could do this. My husband, when I first started, he'd say, "Who are you and what have you done with my wife?" It was just like, it felt true me. But then you get on your day-to-day life and, it's less and less you want to be that. You keep wanting to get back to that true self in that space.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. But it's very hard to to carry on ordinary
Uh-huh.
existence from that place.
Yeah, you got to do the
That's
dishes.
that's the problem. Yeah. You know, I'll read uh,
Okay.
one I recently studied. This is another example of the sort of thing you can't go along the street saying. I'll just read a little bit of this. It is a poem. I am the beginning where all things have their origin, but I have no beginning or ending. I am before, during, and after. I am unborn and the birth of all. I am deathless and the end of all. I am everywhere and nowhere, everyone and no one, everything and nothing. You recognize me as your very self, but I am beyond all knowing.
That I am.
Yeah, I am
That I
beyond all
am.
knowing.
I
Yeah,
wrote a poem one morning. It just come to me about my second NDE. And I noticed later everything started with I am, like what you were reading. Because that I was remembering what I was thinking in the tunnel as I was headed to the light, and everything was coming out, I am. so sorry, my children. I didn't want to leave you. I am going so far away. I am. And I was like, there's something about those words, I am.
Yes. In the Bible, when God is asked, "Who are you?" I am that I am is the answer.
Mhm.
So there's resonance. I am the way and the truth and the light. Christ used the same kind of language,
And I've heard in
though.
psychology, when someone starts out, I am this, I am that, they said, believe them, because it seems to be a true statement we're making and we're declaring when we start out with I am. I am angry. I am done. I am whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Even the small everyday truths, like I'm really pissed off now. I'm not, by the way. Um, yeah. So it's taken. I imagine the other thing that I heard from NDE people was it takes a long time to integrate all of this, and that's
Lifetime.
another thing. Yeah, another thing that's been true for me and for Ron as well, integrated into our lives. This other way of seeing it. At first, it seemed as though it was true when I would do an intensive. I have the experiences, and then I go home and suddenly, where is it? Where's this thing that I saw? And then I began to realize, well, it was still true. I just didn't have access to it. And so I had to sort of let it into my life rather than make it just be part of the intensives and gradually. So now it's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think it all takes place in our soul. And I think that's why these memories are so vivid, because they happen in our soul and not our mind. If you have NDE and you leave your body, or out of body experience, you leave your body, or like mystical experience, it's your soul that's experiencing this. And so it's like you never forget it. You're always learning from it. And, integrate it into your life seems to be like a lifelong thing. And you have these aha moments decades later, like, oh, I didn't realize this about it. It's like it's this tiny little thing that keeps growing and growing, like light, that keeps opening up and becoming more and more that we can see and understand.
Yes, that's exactly. And Ron and I have had the same kind of experience. That's true. Once we'll have an experience, and years later, something new will come out of it. Um, and that's still true. And I can go, it's not exactly going back, but it's just if that place where I know those things is within me, and I just have to sort of touch into it, and it opens up a little bit more. Um, it's not, it's not under my instructional control. It really is an act of
Right.
grace. It's There's no way this happens. You can't do it. It happens to you in some ways. It's a gift. There's no reason for the gift either, as far as I can tell. It's not like I'm something, I'm special because this happened. This is available to everyone since we are all fundamentally in that place.
It seems like it's where imagination lives, where wisdom lives, where truth lives. Like when you're there, it's like you're able to access all kinds of knowledge that you could not
Yes,
before.
exactly. Sometimes the words that come to my mouth are completely surprising to me, as Ron knows. Or that I write down. I don't know what I'm going to write down until I write it down. And it has to be said in a certain way. Sometimes it feels almost like I'm being, um, like these are a communication.
Mhm. Like you're being led.
Yeah, led, taught, opened up, but it's not as though, I mean, the communication is for me, but it's not only for me. It's for me to share, but also it's available to everyone. I mean, what Ron and I have become conscious of, and I think what NDE people become conscious of, it is available to everyone because we all have that connection. It's just that not everyone is aware of it, or particularly might not be interested in it, which is fine.
Yeah. And those words that come to mind, I've learned to pay attention. Like years ago, I walked in my mother-in-law's house and she just had this bruise on her leg. She says, look what I did. I fell. And out of my mouth come the words wound care,
Say that again.
wound care.
Wound care.
I was like, where did that come from? It was just so loud, I just blurted out. And that wound, that just the simple bruise on her leg turned into a wound that she had to go to wound care and get it opened up and packed. And then their home health was coming and trying to get this to heal. Who would have thought that a bruise would have turned into something that was like eating out through her leg and wouldn't heal,
Wow.
but just wound care? I think, well, I'd heard of wound care when I worked at the hospital, but I didn't know that much about it. And it was just became a wound that could not heal when she had to go to an actual place called wound care. And then they were coming to her home to provide wound care. So after that, I thought, I'm going to start paying attention when words like that. So a couple of days ago, my husband had got a deer and we were canning deer stew. And all of a sudden the word real loud come to me, listeria. And I said, when he come in the room, I said, what is listeria? And I just come to me real loud, what is listeria? And we didn't have internet at the time because we had a lot of wind. So our internet come in, we looked it up and it was like something you can get from uncooked meat. I said, well,
Hmm.
we're going to double check the cooking time on the pressure canner on this meat to make sure we don't get listeria. So, I mean, there's
That
knowledge.
yeah, that sounds a little bit like what Ron was talking about. The Peter Panagore, you might have heard of.
Yeah,
His
I know, Peter.
Peter talks about after gifts.
That's
You
what
know,
he
the
calls it.
abilities that open up after NDEs and sometimes STEs, or spiritually transformative experiences. But
It,
Ron been following that with some interest. Yeah, Ron.
Yeah, yeah. So what you're experiencing are synchronicities. Do you know have you explored what a synchronicity is?
yeah,
So there's something that occurs in the real world, like your meat, and then there's something that comes into your mind or into your life that has you give it meaning. So can I give you one unusual example? Because after my void experiences, two things that occurred for me, which has helped me a lot in filmmaking. And the synchronicity thing, have you heard of Skinwalker Ranch?
that
There are
sounds
these
familiar.
places, there are these places quite famous where weird stuff happens, every
Okay.
kind of paranormal phenomena you'd ever imagine. And the second one is Bradshaw Ranch. And there was a situation where I needed an ending to my film. I was going to go to this place in Ohio, but hunting season, so it fell apart. It's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the next morning I got up and, you get news feeds on Google News feeds. And the story was about the vortexes at Sedona. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
Sedona, Sedona, Arizona has
Mhm.
these big rock formations and people experience amazing things sometimes. And right away I knew, oh, that must be where I'm supposed to go. I mean, if I hadn't needed to do this, it would have been, that's interesting. I'll go to the next one. So through a sequence of events of finding somebody to talk to, sent me to somebody else. Eventually I ended up with a young man who had been researching there and had become our guide to the place. And we interacted with alien intelligence, found a portal, got into it. None of us felt very good in it. Interdimensional portal, captured on film something that was like a little plasmatic ball in a cold space. Just to materialize, you need to draw energy from our environment. So all this happened, and I made a movie about it. So that happens to me all the time now. The other thing is, um, I have to do a lot of interviews. I've done interviews with Nobel Prize winners across many different political people, everybody. And I was interviewing this priest at Chia de Mayo, which is in New Mexico. It's a sacred place where there's like sacred sand that people come to and get healed. and it was for a series on miracles. And the people that were running the thing said, well, talk to Father so-and-so. And he didn't want to talk to anybody. He was just grumpy and he was not happy. And all of a sudden, I was able to make this shift, which you might describe that I can reflect back to you your deepest nature. I recognize that. When I say I'm reflecting the same thing we both have, our deepest nature. I just using that right now. And immediately he started talking to me like we're the best of friends, told me what I needed. And I've used that skill multiple times, almost always in interviews. And I've done it over the internet, it works that way too. And when I do it with people, they love it. And when I'm done, it's like they want to keep going on. No, no, goodbye. I got to get out of here. And sometimes my enlightenment teacher and somebody Ed knows, I told him about this. He says, yeah, I can do that. But, be careful with it. It's unethical to mess with people with that. And so once in a while, I'll just fall into that state by accident. Like an Uber driver was driving me back taking me to my house, from where they're doing the repairs. And right away, he started telling me his whole life story and his troubles. And that's what happened. So those are two after effects that I didn't have that before, either of them. So John has one that's more related to martial arts too, that he didn't understand for quite a while. He thought anybody could do it. And why in the heck can't you do it to his students, And then he discovered, well, not everybody has this. Go ahead and talk about it, John.
Yeah, at some point, I don't even remember when it started. I can feel things. It's a kind of synesthesia. When I look at something, I can feel it. It's as if it's kind of hard to say. It's as if it's inside my body, almost. Is that quite right? I don't know. I don't know how to say, but I have a sense of the physicality of it, not just that I can see it, but I feel it. So if I can turn it on and off. And if I look outside, for example, and the leaves are falling, and I turn it on, it feels like they're falling inside of me. So I can feel in my body, I can feel them falling, every individual leaf, uh, which is kind of handy to have when someone's trying to punch you in the face. So you can get out of the way of the punch because you can feel it coming, not just see it. Like this is force coming at me. So the way it feels to me is like I get pushed out of the way by it. And this I developed. I'm sure Peter Ralston's got this too. My teacher, very useful. But uh, it can feel a little weird. If I'm walking down the street and I turn it on, it feels sort of like my skin is gone.
Hmm.
Yeah. So. I thought, well, everybody can develop this, and I still think anybody can, but it did come after these experiences, and big shifts in my martial arts ability occurred as well, in part because of this ability. Ron and I both developed ability, at least occasionally, to move spontaneously to the right spot without knowing why we were moving there.
Yeah, I teach getting into the flow state. You're familiar with the flow state?
Yeah.
So we do this based on,
My oldest son Matthew teaches jiu-jitsu. He come in third place world championship Las Vegas a few years ago in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
so getting into the flow state is getting rid of the self, getting rid of the doer. My instructions to people that I'm training is, should I do this? No, there's not, don't do that. There's no you to do anything. And eventually it just unfolds perfectly. And one of the more recent examples, one of my people I've been training, normally a lot of martial arts is involved in a doing. For example, to become become heavy and connect to the ground and sat like this, is a way to approach a lot of martial arts. And I said, well, I was thinking we were all in the flow state. Let's try this. I think that isn't entirely true. And so I said, let's stand up and be on our heels, which you can imagine would be pretty easy to push over, right? But yet in the flow state, all of us could have the experience that two people couldn't move the person's just standing on their heels. They were doing nothing. I said, don't do anything. You're not there. Just don't do anything. And nobody could move the people who were on their heels, which goes against logic. You'd think it was some magic there. So that's this other state. I mean, one time when I was filming and I was doing a meditation and helping somebody get over his fear. This was on Bigfoot, if you can imagine. He had a lot of fear, and eventually through this process of this meditation, I get people into the flow state. He overcame his fear and got rid of all his equipment. But going back to the car, I'm very old and usually the last one. All of a sudden I was back in my 20-year-old body, and I chased down the hill ahead of everybody else. So that was pretty remarkable. Everybody's like, what's Ron doing? How can he do that? So when you're in the flow state, mostly I'm back in my 30, 40-year-old body doing it, and it happens just perfectly. From the outside, it looks wonderful, I suppose, and kind of like fake, probably.
I
So
get,
these things
and
are
yeah, I get in that
very,
flow state when I share my near-death experience to a live audience or even just a few
mm,
people.
mm, mm.
I
yeah.
get back the memory of it all. I get back into that place, that realm, and I feel like I'm levitating. And then it continues for a few hours. I just feel like I call it harness the light. It's just the way it feels,
And there's no you there, right? And
right? It's just the
ordinary
bliss.
Peg is gone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So letting go.
Hmm.
That's actually something that I belong to a group of people who are training to lead enlightenment intensives. I led someone in the past, uh, which is why I'm with the group. I'm not so much interested in leading them anymore, but I like that environment. I like the process. I want to support people. And we were talking about um, how easy it is to be. And most of us are involved in doing. We think everything is a doing because we have to do stuff to we have to make the dinner, we have to do the wash, there's all the stuff we have to do. And somehow we get the idea that we are a doing, and only by doing stuff can we be fulfilled. If I do this, if I get this external thing, I get it, then I will be fulfilled. I will, everything I need will be here. I'll be happy. And of course, it never works out that way. And one of the realizations I've had, and it's not a new one, but it's that we are already fulfilled. Our being is fulfilled. But it's hard to see that because it's so simple. Just like it's hard to let go of yourself,
Makes
but
me
it's
think of
actually
that old
quite
song,
simple.
Let It Be, speaking
Yeah,
words of
okay.
wisdom, let it be.
Just let everything go.
And just don't turn it
Just
into a doing.
yeah, it's not a doing, and it's analogous to unconditional love. Unconditional love has no conditions. It's not a doing. It's not because you did anything that you get love, which is the way it often works for us humans, right? I love my I don't have a child that says I love my son because he's so good at what he does. That can be that kind of thing. But no, we get love of the love of God because we are, just because we are, you could say. I'm using God as a metaphor here. And we have value just because we are. It's very, very, very simple, but kind of frustrating because, well, what am I doing all this shit for?
It reminds
It's
me,
so easy.
years ago, I was doing this therapeutic foster care, and I had all these kids. They were giving me the hardest kids because I had a lot of success with them. And I got this one girl, and I'm like, "You're taking her back. I'm not doing this. I'm just not doing this." And I took her to the agency, like, and they're like, "No, you just can't bring her here. You just can't. You've got to work it out." And I was like, "No, I don't." And so I went home and I cried all the way home because I felt I failed. I had all this success. I felt I failed. Got a knock on my door. Great big bouquet of flowers got delivered from the agency thanking me, and to be loved when you feel like you've really messed up, you really failed, is when I think that unconditional love to be to have receive that or to give it to someone like, yeah, you really disappointed me. You really messed up, but guess what? I'm going to help you. You know, I don't
Yeah,
know if that makes sense or not, but
I see the
yeah,
connection. Yeah.
yeah. You are loved. Regardless, it's a little hard for us as humans to understand it because how can you love someone who's been terrible to you, for example? But that's one of the things that I've understood. NDE people find out there's the love of God, or whatever you want to call it. The love on the other side is unconditional and for everyone. It doesn't matter what you've done. This is not even a question of forgiveness.
mhm.
There's nothing to forgive.
Yeah, because we can't be perfect all the time and do
Yeah.
good at everything we do. We're gonna mess up. We're not gonna be good at everything. It's just not meant to be. So, but
So yeah, so I'll be very curious to hear. Like, Ron, are you going to go ahead and do an interview later?
Do what?
Interview with
I haven't
Peggy?
talked to her about it. So
okay.
you
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 you want to
so
close
you
here and
can
interview
edit it.
me privately, or you just want to do it here? I don't care.
So would you be willing to do an experiment with us?
Sure.
Like now?
Okay.
So this is based out of the techniques of the Enlightenment Intensive, and it has to do with getting into the what I call the we space,
Okay.
getting rid of our boundaries and being together. I think it's like being in the flow state where there are no boundaries. We are in the non-physical realm together. Like those are what precipitated to some extent the experiences we describe. And the procedure, I'll give you the procedure. I will say, a simplest example of how the interchange, I'll say to John, tell me who you are. And he says, contemplates, for a minute. Something comes up, and what do you say, John? Quickly.
Mm.
Uh, I'm just this guy.
So that's a stupid answer, but I
Yeah,
will.
but yeah, don't take it.
So so I'll
It's also true.
I'll say thank you. And then the way we'll do this is that I will ask the question. The question is, tell us who we are. And by we, I mean the three of us. And and I guess we can do it this way. Um, we'll all contemplate, and somebody will say what came up for them as to what we all are, with no boundaries. And and then if it's John or you, I'll say thank you. Then John will ask the question, and then we'll do that through, and then you'll ask the question, okay, when it's your turn. And we'll do this twice. Does that sound good?
Whatever.
Questions? Got it? And just, whatever comes up and honestly comes up is what you say.
You're going to ask the questions?
No, so I'll ask the question first.
Okay.
Somebody will answer, say something, and then I'll say thank you. And John will then ask the same question, tell us who we are.
It's like spin the bottle.
Huh?
Spin the bottle.
Exactly. And then when that's done, and he'll say thank you, that means it's your turn to ask the question. Then I'll do it again. He'll do it again. You'll do it again.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
You can have your eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. Tell us who we are.
When I first received the question, I focused on the pictures in front of me. I thought, well, yeah, we're just a bunch of pictures here on the screen. Um, but then I had this experience of, like um, reaching out a little bit like that hard experience I was talking about, but you know, eh, enveloping the two of you, including you in, so it became a sensation that we are together uh, in this moment, in this time, connected through not just through technology, but through our awareness with each other.
Thank you.
So you want me to
Tell
say
us,
who I am, or is he going to ask a question now?
Oh,
I'll let,
John went.
Okay.
yeah, and then you can respond
I
after,
respond to your question.
yeah, after a little bit of contemplation.
Well, John will ask the question next.
Yeah,
Okay.
tell us who we are.
We are lost souls on a planet that is all physical, and the spiritual is unseen, but we long for the unseen. The unseen is our senses that we use to guide us through the physical.
Thank you.
So now I ask a question,
Yes.
but you guys are going with this what we are statement question.
Tell us what we are. Same question all the time.
Oh, okay. So I ask you then, tell us
Just
who we
ask
are.
both of us, actually.
Okay. So that's the same question then to you, Ron, is tell us who we are.
To anybody, even
Okay.
yourself. So just say it again. Just tell us who we are.
Tell us who we are.
I got the sense that you, Peg, are have been instrumental for John and I in the non-physical realm. What way I can't quite say, but there's a connection. You're pivotal. Tell us what we are.
We are our stories, our memories.
Thank you.
Tell us what we are.
We are free and complete.
Say more about that.
That by dissolving the boundaries between us, there's no reason to put up a barrier, protective barrier. And so there's no enemy, as it were, nothing. We're all complete together. That sounds a little stupid. I set the boundaries between us, cause concern, so we're just free now.
Thank you.
Tell us what we are.
We are all part of the one. We think that there are boundaries, but they're all illusions in that secret place that Peggy was talking about. There are no boundaries. All it takes to enter that place is to let go of the illusion of separation. It's going to be a little scary.
Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you.
I had another one I wanted to answer, but
Oh, please.
we are living and we are dying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What'd you think?
Sort of like meditation, isn't it? I don't meditate, but it seems like that's what it was.
Yeah, it's similar. It's kind of opening up to, you know, what is here as us at the moment. Or you can do that with anything. Contemplate, just open up to what you are, who you are, what life is, and let it inform you. I'm sure you do that yourself in your way.
During my 5-year-old drowning NDE, first place I went was this two-story house, and I've not found that house near that pond. I don't know where it is, but there was old people sitting around a table. I assume ghosts, because I'm a ghost, And it was like abandoned house, and they're sitting there talking, and I go through the door, and they turn and look at me, and the man at the end of the table is the only one that speaks. He turns and he says, because I ask, I'm shy because this was 1966, and children didn't interrupt adults. So I was shy to interrupt, and they had stopped talking. They looked at me, and I didn't know who they were, of course. And I said, I'm trying to find kids to play with. And so the man sitting at the end of the table, there's all white-haired people. He turned to me and he said, check the graveyards. Now, years later, when I tried telling my experiences, I was really embarrassed to tell that part because it sounds stupid to me. Like, why would there be kids at graveyards? Like, wouldn't they go somewhere else, like amusement parks or ride a pony? If you're a kid and a ghost and you're just traveling the earth, because at that time at 5, that's all I knew of my NDE was all out of body traveling the earth. And so now, like a year ago, somebody said there's some kind of new thing in cars that will show a person on the screen, like where your radio's at, if a person is going to be walking across the street, like it picks up. And so they decided to drive through graveyards. And these pictures of people are popping up on their screen, but nobody's there. And so that looked really cool. Like this technology was picking up spirits, but it was no big. And so I don't know if that's true, if there was a hoax, but it was on YouTube. But so I thought maybe people really do hang out in graveyards. It made me think of it because this morning I was watching a YouTube and somebody used a spirit box and they took it with them. They went around cleaning off headstones. And this one headstone they were at, all of a sudden you could hear on this spirit box, and it could be made up, I don't know. But there was a voice, like it sounded like a Japanese woman talking. I don't know what she said, but then it come across a clear man's voice. It said, "Thank you, like thank you for doing that, like for washing this off." And so it just makes me wonder if people do hang out, like to see if somebody's going to come see them, or they know people be visiting the grave, so they're there for that. And I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know where people go. Think of Dr. George Ritchie. His NDE, I think, was the one that Raymond Moody first heard and told about. And he was a medical student, and he was going to get cleared so he could leave the army, and army's going to send him home to a university to become a doctor because he had some medical training, but he got pneumonia and died. And so he wanted to go home so bad that he was like traveling through the states to get there. And when then a orderly asked the doctor, says, "Can you bring this guy back? And anything you can do?" Says, "Well, I've heard of inject them their heart with adrenaline." So he did that. And so George Ritchie come back. So years later, George Ritchie was a prominent medical doctor and he wanted to become a psychiatrist. And he had to go before this review board to become psychiatry. And he had just come out about his near-death experience. And this is a long time later. But George Ritchie had said that years later, he went back to that town where he had went into this bar as this spirit, and he could tell these people, they said, "I thought you'd never been here before. And I can tell you this street, I can tell you what's down there, I can tell you what's inside that bar." Because he was in a bar and he saw, as when he was a ghost, when he had his NDE, there were spirits behind people drinking at the bar trying to get that drink,
Mm.
trying to get that smoke. And so my mind is just full of curiosity after having that NDE at 5 years old and knowing what it's like to be a ghost. Um, just exactly what they're doing. Are they standing here right around us, beside us, giving us these little whispers like, "Well, go, you're one is, to think about these things." And I think that the spirits come through that are hanging around that, oh, maybe I can get my voice heard through here, or I don't know, my mind just goes those places.
Yeah. It sounds like you're asking what is a spirit, or
I don't know what I'm asking.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
talking. I'm just like what
Oh,
we were
okay.
just doing.
Okay. It came up. That's what came up. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
whatever comes up, that's what you say. Yeah.
So I did a movie about a psychic woman who lives in Utah, and her mother died, and we were doing this investigation in a haunted hotel. And the mother and her name is April Slaughter, had sort of agreed at some time the mother would come in contact publicly to verify she, that she was still present in some way. And so we recorded her mom coming back and hugging her and on an SLS device. It was quite moving and profound. And so yeah, and then the guy who built the first spirit box, we in the same investigation, he showed up and started turning the knobs on his rather old spirit box machine that became the basis for the other ones. So pretty convincing.
I mean, as a spirit, he came and started turning the knobs. So what you're saying?
I took April's hand and started turning the knobs because she had to tune it,
Uh,
and she could feel it. And then he said it felt like a cold thing. And then he came over and touched my son-in-law and touched him on the shoulder, and he described it. You could see it touching him.
Mm.
Cool stuff.
yeah.
There's a
So
hotel in Marietta, Ohio. It's called Lafayette Hotel. It's very historic, and everybody says it's haunted. So on our anniversary, I always wanted to just stay in this old hotel. And so we stayed there and I walked down the basement and I thought, because I heard the bathroom was haunted. I didn't feel anything in the bathroom, just kind of weird. Went down the basement and my husband went one direction, I went the other. And all of a sudden, I felt like in my imagination that I could see these guys. I don't want to know if they're called sailors, but like they come in off the boats, like they're bringing supplies in through the basement and just seemed like they were just whipping in and out. And I don't know. I think it'd be a good. I think people have done films there at that hotel because I think it is haunted.
is that would you say that's one of the abilities that you've developed, or no?
No, no, it just made me think of it. You said hotel and
Yeah.
about that kind of thing. And then John, something you said earlier, talking about a leaf, and it made me think of years ago, I had a spiritual experience and I seen this leaf blowing through the mirror, and a voice said, "Follow God like a leaf follows the wind. Your only job is to trust." And I found a lot of wisdom in that over the years. Just sometimes we just have to get into that zone and stay there and follow where it takes us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the synchronicities.
Yeah.
You know, it's a path kind of guiding you because of the dual nature of the physical world and the world of the mind's meaning, the human being's meaning. So are we good,
Whatever.
Peg?
Hey, I'm here for the ride. You guys have anything else you want to add?
So if I were to ask you a couple questions, would you be able to get me them on get a copy of it to me somehow technically? Do you know how to do that or not?
If you want to ask me some questions, can I get it to you technically, like email or something?
Well, you have to, you'll download your Zoom interview, right? Onto
I'm
a hard
sorry.
drive. You'll download the Zoom is recording this now, right?
Mhm.
And you'll take that and put it someplace on a hard drive on your computer.
I put it in a file and
Yeah.
MP3 and then upload to YouTube.
So is there a way you could send me that file so I could use those in my movie?
Once it's published to YouTube, I always send it out to my guests so I can send it to that email. Are you wanting like this raw um, before it's
I don't,
published to YouTube?
so I wouldn't use anything that we just done. I would just ask you this question. From all your interviews
Okay.
with ND people, what would be the two main takeaways that you would want people to hear?
Some of it's bullshit. Some of it's bullshit.
So I think you'd have to say something like, I've done 150 interviews
I've
with
done
people.
over 400 interviews, and some of it is bullshit, and some of it is real. And we have no way of knowing how to know the difference. And to try to study this in any research way, first, we're going to have some kind of criteria to where we can wean out what is real and what is not real before we have something we can study. And how to do that, um, you know, interrogation, investigation, same as if like I used to be a child abuse investigator, to use investigative techniques, background information, witnesses, because anybody can come on and say absolutely anything. And you ask them to produce some kind of report. They said this happened in emergency squad. There's no record they were ever in emergency squad or taken to the hospital or ever had a medical condition. How can we verify they had this experience? Now, grant you, I drowned when I was 5. I have a tape recording of my mom talking about it before she passed away. And my siblings, I don't know, I suppose somebody could interview them and ask them what they remember. My NDE of tube pregnancy, I have my doctor's report, and I would love to get my doctor on one of these and I could talk to him about it. But um, w- I'm a realist, I like to deal with facts. And after doing so many interviews and watching what they said then, some people come out and admitted to me they lied. And one is like very famous and a Christian NDE. And I caught her in so many lies. And finally, one day, I asked her, about all these lies. And she says, "What does it matter?" She says, "I have a lot of books I got to sell." And I thought, what does it matter? What does it matter? Are you kidding me? Number one, is a Christian, you don't lie. Number two, you're bearing false witness about God, Jesus, and everything. But number three, we're trying to do research here. We're trying to find out what is heaven really like. What is the other side really like? And if people think it's just a game, just to sell books or just to get views, then just throw NDEs in the trash. because they're garbage. They're of no significance whatsoever if they are lies. We have got to find a way to get to the truth. And I'm passionate about
How how common is that, and what what made you have that reaction? When you're listening to someone, what is it that tells you that you don't believe this?
that. Sometimes it's body language. Um, if they're not getting passionate about it, um, I died and I saw the light and I felt the unconditional love. It's rehearsed things you
Mm,
hear over and over.
mm, yeah.
Unconditional love, and I see the bright white light, and da, 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 da. And then others is like, I felt the love. It's just like too dramatic.
Mm, mm,
Um, some is very little of the NDE, but a whole lot of therefore, we are to do this and we are to do that, and religion is bad, and or it's and my because of my NDE, just like it says in the Bible, this just like I'm like, here we go. And you get to know a person. I could really like their NDE, and I get them on the screen, and you feel them. Like I could feel your personality, I feel your personality, you can feel mine. You get a feeling for the person other than just an email or what you saw on YouTube. And it's just what transpires between the airways, that human
okay.
nature. And some outright, I heard their story early on when I first had them on like 3, 4 years ago, and now their story is totally different, and it's all they're getting a lot of views, and I'm like, it's not even how they told it at the very beginning.
Mm,
One of the first people I interviewed, I realized, oh my gosh, this guy's lying. And I can't say too much because it would give away who it is on his story. But it makes for a great title. And I'm telling you the truth, people don't care. People do not care if it's true. They want entertained. Just like if you go watch a movie, do you care if this movie's true or not? Do you care if it's based on a true story and they've changed it so much it's no longer true? Or do you care if it's just, Peter Pan, it's not true? People don't care. They just want to be entertained. And that's I don't believe that's I'm positive that's not what NDEs are supposed to be. I believe NDEs because I was the first in the bright white light at 25. Before I saw God or anything, I was just in the white light, and my first thought was, oh my gosh, it's real. The whole God, Bible, Jesus thing, because I'm not dead in the grave, scratching to get out, I'm somewhere, and it's real. And I'm praying to God as I've always just prayed, just start blurting out whatever I think. I was like, God, you got to send people back. You got to let people know it's real. Maybe if you did, we could show, not thinking they would let me come back, but they could show that it's real. Maybe people would live their lives different if they know it's real. And I feel that's why we're sent back. I feel that's why we have this technology of YouTube to do this. And I feel, such a time as this is what we should, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Everybody's kind of feeling like we're on a end road here. And I just feel like NDEs are so important, and if science would stop rolling their eyes, scientists, and stop and listen to what we're saying. Go ahead, interrogate, interview, do your research, find out who's telling the truth and who's not, and then take those core stories and find out what we're saying about the bright light, about the telepathic communication, how we went forward in time or went backward in time, or what we learned, or the abilities we now have because of it. Because there's a lot. There's a lot in these that we could learn. Um, I think it could help in the field of missing children. I think if they tap into this wisdom, this place that we can get into, that we could be able to know this child comes up missing. Oh, here's this, I don't want to say psychic department, but I don't know what else to call it. And then here's people that have toned in and learned through science, because we're going to need help with science. We got all these gifts we don't know what to do with, and learn how to use them and be able to hone in where that kid is at, or this elderly person, or whoever. There's so much information. There's the monks praying for cancer uh, to go away, states away in some dish in Hershey, Pennsylvania, I'm told, and they're going away. The studies of praying for people in hospitals, and they don't know who's being prayed for and who's not, but the ones that's being prayed for are getting better, healing faster, and whatever. There is a definite thing that we don't see that we're not using. Somebody I've heard like the doctors say, you're not going to make it. So they die. They're told, oh, this pill that you've been giving you that's supposed to prolong your life, guess what? It's no longer working. So they die. There's so much mental stuff that um, when you get into the NDEs and the gifts, and we're honing in on a lot of this, and it's just like a sense. We come back with a sense. And another thing, the people that has their NDEs, if you listen carefully, another way you can tell they're true is, say if they experience telepathic communication there, for example, when they come back, they kind of sense a people feeling or thinking, or and they kind of do something to help because of that. Whatever we experience on the other side is like a gift we come back with.
I agree.
It's a gift we
Yeah.
come back with. You had it over there, you'll come back with it. And now you got to learn how to use it. And we can't learn anything if we got all these people making up stuff and we can't get to
Mm.
the meat of
There's,
it.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, there's something similar in the light intensive. Uh, you can tell when someone has had an experience or is having an experience. I mean, there's a shift in that, and sometimes it really is as if a light has gone on,
Mhm.
and they start speaking scripture spontaneously. Um, and also for me, I look for the t time when they say it's really difficult to talk about this. There's no words for it. That usually indicates to me that it's they experience something because it is impossible to describe this. It really is. I mean, I come up with words, but it is utterly unsayable.
yeah,
Whatever.
you kind of feel like, oh God, I'm trying again and it's not working. I'm babbling
Yeah.
something anyhow. By the way, Peg, when you were talking at one point, the light behind you reflecting on your screen back there, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
That light was moving around like crazy.
Really?
Yeah, maybe it's a ghost.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that is the like a light is supposed to be further back. It's just to put light in the background so the background's not so dark, but usually it's
But
getting me pushed out that
the
far.
brightness of it was moving like this for a while when you were saying something. So look at it; it's kind of cool.
Okay, I'll look back at it.
So you wanted to make a movie? Can I give you a suggestion?
Yes.
Um, you could take your story, as you told in that link you sent me, or maybe say it again out loud. Get it transcribed into words, and that's easy, to get a transcription service, and then feed it to ChatGPT 4 and ask them to structure a movie for you in
Chat
3 acts.
GB what?
It's the AI,
There's so many out there. I've looked through what's good.
ChatGPT 4,
GPT-4. That's what you were saying. Okay.
and you could feed then that interview to it
Uh-huh.
and ask it, would you please structure this into a 90-minute um, biopic of you in 3 acts, and it'll do it. And that would be a way to start out, and then you could work with that to smooth it out a bit. You get it really quick, it'll do it in 5 minutes.
It would
Hmm.
do a 90-minute.
Oh yeah. It may ask you, you'd maybe give you in chunks and you'd say, how's this going? And you could say, oh, that's going good. Do some more.
Is it
Yeah,
animation?
Ron is.
Huh?
Is it animation?
No, it's creating a script for you.
It creates a script. Okay.
That's what it sounds like you're looking for.
Okay. Well, I have someone that is willing to do the script, that she was a script writer for the movie Tiata. a true story about an American Indian girl. Um,
So I was just saying this would be a way you could get it done quickly
okay,
and then use that, modify it a little bit as you would see fit.
okay. First, I get it put into a transcript,
Yeah, so it's in English, as a
mhm,
document.
and then that way you can put it into that chat GPT-4,
GPT-4, yes.
and it'll give me a script.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
I was actually surprised to hear you say that there were a lot of people who were just lying.
It was
That hadn't crossed my mind that might
Really?
actually happen.
Well, when I first got involved with IONS, they forbid anybody to use the words God, Jesus, and that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
I left IONS, and so I started my own, and I invited anybody. You didn't have to be whatever. And so I got a whole variety. And then, so I got a lot of people I already knew. I had no trouble getting guests because I knew a lot of NDEers. And most of them I found very believable and really enjoyed, the majority. But now the last year I try to find new guests, and that's where I'm running into I'm seeing people exaggerating their story from what it originally was, but that isn't so much an issue as the oh, now if it's popular, if one person has a popular lot of views video and they said the ET was in their NDE, guess what? 200 more people are going to come along, and guess what? ET was in their NDE too, and you never heard of it, or it involved a
Hmm.
UFO, or somebody says they're writing a book about ETs and UFOs and NDEs. Suddenly all these people, it never happened before, or they're wanting people to say something about reincarnation. Suddenly, those are very popular because they
Hmm.
only want those. They want to feed people what they want to get out rid of people, get people away from religion. So everybody's got to have some kind of about reincarnation. I had one guy tell me that somebody contacted him and said, if you say that God told you it was okay to be homosexual in your NDE, we promise you this and this. And he's like, that was never in my NDE. So, another thing is a lot of people like to hear that someone can channel, they just channel this information and they all believe it because they say they channeled it. And what do they channel? They channel that they channel aborted babies, and they say the aborted babies all say that they wanted to be aborted and reincarnated later. Oh, they want to hear that. They're going to put them up front and center at the conference every year because that's what their political side is all about. And it's getting crazy. And
so
I've
would you
talked to
want
other
to,
people about it, and they're seeing the same thing I am, but nobody wants to say it out loud. So I'll tell you the worst one, or maybe stop, put my brakes on and say, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Because I almost had a guy on because he was real popular. He'd been on TV programs about his NDE. He's been on news channels about his NDE. He claims to be like, I don't remember what it's called, but like head of psychiatry for the whole world. Guy don't even have, I did a little research before I had him on. Guy don't even have a degree. He gets on there on his interviews and he claims that the Pentagon contacts him for their suicide awareness day, and they ask him to train their troops about suicide awareness. Guy's a freaking liar. He's a
Hmm.
liar. And nobody's catching on. They have him on news for Suicide Awareness Day every year. Got a picture of him standing there with the mayor in Las Vegas. Nobody
Hmm.
checks his credentials, but excuse me, but guess what? I contact people ahead of so and so. Now, the medical review board told me he does not have a degree and that and this
Hmm.
needs reported. I contact because to me, this needs under investigation. He has claims he has a suicide hotline. Okay, mind you, the guy has no degree, has suicide hotline. Well, I found on his Facebook, I was scrolling through, and here's a journalist who is actually does have a suicide prevention hotline, legit, was calling him out on the exact same things I was finding. And but yeah, people don't care. They don't care. Let him know, okay, he doesn't have a degree. This is bogus. This is dangerous because he's claiming with his little program he created, he can cure your anxiety and depression and all this. You can go off your
Mm,
medication.
mm,
And so I'm like, put on my brakes. I'm like, if I'd had that guy on and he had told people to go off their medication and all this stuff he claims with the Pentagon and all, and somebody end up in a bad way because of, because they trust me. And so I slowed way down. And so I'm really like researching people before I ask to have them on. Not to say that I do everybody, because I don't. Not to say that if I have them on, you can believe them, because that's not true either. Sometimes, like, okay, sure, come on. But it's a huge responsibility. But then again, I find out people don't care.
mm,
They don't care as long as they're selling tickets at their conference,
mm.
as long as it's getting a lot of views on their YouTube. And then you have YouTubers that are suddenly they're like the next Messiah. They're having dreams and premonitions about the end of the world, about who's going to be president and what's going to happen. I'm like, oh my God.
It's really it's a shame. I mean, I do think there's a reason this is occurring. You know, we need what you guys are telling us. We need to hear this. It's not. I don't think it's a coincidence that more and more people are having NDEs because our technology allows this. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Right.
Um,
But also, we
we're
have
in a state of
YouTube.
we're in a state of crisis, and this
W-
is
And
the
we're in a
voice.
moral crisis.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
why not lie? If people don't have any
Mm,
morality, why not lie? Why not
mm.
go on here and tell the biggest pile of crap and laugh about behind all of our backs what fools we are, or just so they can sell those books, or it's getting to be a
Yeah.
racket. Yeah, that's the
Well,
truth.
I'm sorry to hear that because it's that I mean that the message is always the message that I hear is it's about love. We need to love each other. We need to learn how to let love rule our lives and extend it to others. The same love that sustains us.
Let me tell you something else. If you have a product that isn't selling, or if you have services you like to sell and make some a side job on YouTube, come out and say you had an NDE, and they'll start
Mm,
buying those services.
mm.
Whether you're channeling or whether you're give me your credit card and I can speak to angels and I'll tell you what the angels say. People are gone through this. I don't know if they really take it seriously. This is just a entertainment, this little circus show, but some really do. And then people have an NDE, they go to the internet, and if they go to this over here, it's going to tell them, oh, guess what? You're a medium. You have a power. Here, you need to start doing this mediumship stuff. And they go that route, not knowing what they're doing, but they were told they were. Or you go over here into this, and then now they're into that. And I always say, when you're listening to an NDE, take the story and then pay attention what they did with it afterwards. Did they
Mm.
suddenly hang up a sign, I'm a medium, and then you're charging your card? Did they suddenly write not one book, but 10 books? I don't know.
Or were they quiet for 35 years and then started speaking?
Are they what?
Well, for a lot of NDE folks I've heard about, they had the NDE and they couldn't talk about it and they couldn't talk about it and they finally talked about it.
Well, I'm
Uh,
in that group, you know.
yeah,
We
I have
didn't
a
have a
tendency to,
name NDE to even call it. We didn't have a place where we could, like I live in Southeast Ohio. They probably would have put a burn a cross in my yard if I would start talking to my neighbors about it,
right.
So yeah, I could go
Yeah, yeah,
online and find common people, but
yeah. It seems to cause also another thing I think is Peter Pan talks about this, it causes problems. It's a difficult thing to have an NDE, is my experience. And it's also can be difficult to have a spiritually transformative experience. I mean, what do you do with it? How do you explain it? How do you fit it into your life? So that to me is always a sign of real if someone is, there's they kind of struggle with it. Um, but yeah, as I say, I'm sorry to hear that.
The first time I got aware of this, when I first got into wanting to share my NDE at a group, the group leader had said she spoke at some, I don't want to call it a conference, but something locally. And so I looked it up online and I thought, why would they have NDEs in the same building, this, say, conference, as UFOs, palm reading, um, the ET stuff, I don't know, all this different and mediums and psychic stuff. Because to me, it was a religious experience. It was a Christian experience. And that's when that's when it dawned on me what was going on. Like to me, it was like putting church in the middle of a circus tent. Like, why would you do that? Take something so
Mm.
sacred and put it with, Bigfoot um and I didn't get it. Well, I just take me a long time to get it. That churches wouldn't allow NDEs because we're false prophets and this kind of stuff. We don't fit with their biblical view. But then some people now, they tour all over the world to churches and they have a Christian near-death experience. They kind of have like a little preaching that goes with it. And very legitimate people. Um, there's one guy that made a church. He was atheist and he become, believing in NDEs. And now he says, don't call me your NDE researcher, but he wrote a lot of books about near-death experiences. And he's kind of the face of near-death experiences. And he's got like 4,000 people in his church and he's well known everywhere. And I don't know. I just feel like God looks down, just shakes his head, and rolls his eyes of what we have done. But when we're sent back, he gives us another shot when we're sent back, another chance at life. And what are we doing with it? Because I felt like if I didn't start sharing my NDE, I had this visual in my imagination that when I die the next time, that God would say, did you tell anyone? Because I begged at 25 years old to come back, Bill, raise my 3 little boys. And so, I got to come back and do that. And so I had this visual of God saying, did you tell anyone? And I'd be like embarrassed, and say, no, I was too afraid they'd call me crazy. I'd afraid they'd think I was stupid or think I was a liar. And I just felt this shame I would feel. I just felt this look on God's face would be like, you were dead. Because I was one of them that was told, no, it is your time. I couldn't go back. Most of them say they were told, it's not your time, go back. I was told the answer is no. When I was begging to go back, I was told the answer is no, it is your time. So to be sent back and then kept alive all night with that internal bleeding that should have killed, I should have stayed dead, right? Medically. When I was with Dr. Oz, because I kept passing out all night after I was admitted, and Dr. Oz said, every time you passed out, you died. And during the night, I said, God, I know you can't keep bringing, I didn't have any more NDE. So I said, I know you can't keep doing this. Keep bringing me back. Please keep me alive till morning. Maybe my doctor come in, do another ultrasound and find, because I need this fixed medically. And so I just take it so seriously. I take my experiences so seriously and I take the subject of NDE seriously. And I've thought about going to high university and just saying, can you help me? Here's this subject that you don't want to teach, that you won't research, but I want to do it. I need someone to show me how I can get where this is taken seriously.
I believe there's an institute in Virginia has done a lot of research in that
Yeah, but
area.
if you read the subjects though, you start getting into the mediumship and you get into the, I don't know if it's palm reading, but you get into all those woo-woo things. Now, I just want
Well,
to study near-death experiences. The,
well, I think that this one, the institute in Virginia, maybe Ron can remember the name. That's all they're devoted to is near-death experiences. Um,
Not familiar.
um, yeah,
yeah,
it's Kenneth Ring is in that one, I think.
yeah. And I was told
Bruce
he's an
Bruce Bruce
atheist.
Bruce Bruce Grayson. One of
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, Bruce Grayson, I heard. I think Kenneth Ring is getting old and kind of, I get,
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
all,
they're
they
all getting
all
old.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I talked to both of them recently and they said we're too old to be on camera.
Yeah. And that Bigelow, you heard about the contest, billionaire, this Bigelow, Robert Bigelow, and he
Yeah,
offered. Oh,
he owned Skinwalker Ranch
okay.
initially.
Okay, well, I had Dr. Belva Morse on who got, I think it's like almost $400,000 from him to do this research on mediums. And he wrote a book about it, and I had him on. And, I've had Raymond Moody on and different ones. And I'm like, show me the meat. You're giving me potatoes here. Where's the, I've read these ones that's won the prizes, their evidence. Because Bigelow wants evidence. I've read it. I'm not seeing it. I am not satisfied. I am not
Hmm.
getting any satisfaction. And I'm like driven, like until I get some satisfaction. And I watched the YouTubes and okay, maybe this is it. I just watched another one. It's this lady, she was atheist and she thought religion was just uneducated people. There must be something wrong with them. Then she met some highly educated friends that went to church. And she was saying that she ended up they said, well, you don't believe in the Bible, have you read it? How scientific is that to say you don't believe something you've never even researched? So she said she read the Bible 10 times, and each time she read it she found more wisdom and more insight and stuff. And I didn't finish watching the thing because I watched it, I clicked on it because I thought, aha, somebody's going to have some evidence now, because scientists, right, it was atheists and now they believe in NDEs. Nothing other than, bottom line with hers, you can't prove it. Just like love, you can't prove something you can't prove. There's no scientific evidence for some things that exist. Well, that's not good enough.
Well, I gotta take off.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
are
I
you
get I get wound up.
I could
really?
I
See,
could
my
tell.
chest gets red. I get wound up.
So, are you going to include the weak space practice we did in your
Sure, I'll include
podcast?
all this. I'll include until we say goodbye. It's on there, if that's fine. I
So,
cut off the chit chat until when I introduce this, I cut all that off till I moment, and then until we say goodbye, then I click off and
so if you get
Okay.
any comments from people who at the same time participated in the contemplation, because I'm wondering if they could, it'd be interesting to know.
okay. Yeah, feel free to answer in the comments or comment in the comments or yeah.
So you'll send me a link. Eventually, it shows up on
I'll
YouTube.
send you a link. Yeah, it'll be ready later tonight, early in the morning now. As soon as the moment it hits published, I send it to my guest.
So you didn't investigate us too well, so thank you for letting us know.
I didn't, but I was like, I'm not sure because I heard the Bigfoot and I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't do because some channels do that, they have the ET and the Bigfoot stuff on and I don't. So,
I
but
can
then you
make
say,
a
oh no, that's
case.
not what we're talking about. It's like, oh, okay.
I can make a case, an argument that there's good reason to include them all, leave them on the table.
I
But
had just heard though, I had heard that the guy that started the Bigfoot thing, that before he died, he baited up. That was out there, but
oh well, that was the guy who took a piece of wood and did a foot thing.
oh,
But I've talked to a lot of people who've had Bigfoot experiences, and I don't think they're lying. Um, and they all have the quality of the trickster. Are you familiar with the trickster concept?
uh-uh.
In history, there's this character who messes with people and creates chaos to help them move forward. Because a lot of these Bigfoot encounters are life-changing for these people. It changes their worldview totally of what's possible. They show up, they're there, and all of a sudden they disappear. Well, what do you do with that?
I live near where they have the Mothman Festival every year.
I know you do. Now that you tell me where you're living.
Yep. And Point Pleasant, West Virginia, they have a Mothman Festival every year. I've never been to it, but I worked with people. I used to work at maximum security women's prison in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, near there. Well, it wasn't Point Pleasant, it's near there, but anyway, they were on the film. They're real brief in there because they were police officers when all that was going on, and so they were interviewed for that movie. and they got to be in a really small part. Like they jumped off the bridge as the bridge is going down. You can already see them, but anyway, but they was in there. But
Yeah, I've had a couple experiences myself, but we don't have
they
to talk about them.
they
Huh?
told me that the actual true story of the Mothman isn't what the movie showed. They said the true story is, this is the police officers told me this that worked there at the time, that there was an Indian chief who was mad about something. I don't know if they took land or what it was, and they put a curse on the area. It had something to do with the Indian putting a curse. And they said that was what the real story of the Mothman thing was. It had nothing to do with actual moth.
Mhm.
It was of this chief that put a curse. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know much about the Mothman, just that it
Yeah,
exists.
don't need either.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Well,
Yeah, it's been a hoot.
thank you for talking with us.
Mhm. All right. All right. And bye.
Carry on the good work.
Yes,
Thank
carry
you.
on the good work. Yeah, spread the
Thank you.
word.
Thank you. You too. And bye.